This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
The Pirates and Cardinals have the best two records in baseball, and they go head-to-head one final time this regular season. Could this be a preview of next week's division series? Coverage begins Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. And we're on fire. The First Take Podcast starts now.
Coming up on the First Take Podcast, is Aaron Rodgers officially the best quarterback in the NFL? Skip and Stephen A weigh in on that bad man, and we're also talking about that other QB, Tom Brady. Will he lead the Patriots to another perfect season? Plus, it was media day in the association yesterday. We hear from D. Rose, LeBron, and Kobe. All that and more coming up on the podcast. Good morning. Thanks for being with us here on First Take. Skip Bayless to my left. Stephen A. Smith joins us from Philly, Chip Kelly's town. I'm Molly Karam. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
What's up? What's going on, y'all? How you doing?
We're good. We miss you already. You seem relaxed and happy.
Whoa, don't worry about it. Oh, trust me, I'm here in the house. I just got one question for my man Skip Bayless this morning. And here's the proverbial handshake over the television screen. Skip Bayless, I got to ask you a question. Did you see that bad man last night? Whoa! Woo! That's so bad, boy.
You know, I've never done this in the history of this show. I'm going to offer you my condolences on the first topic of this show prematurely, because you deserve it prematurely, because we all know you're about to get scorched in a debate.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. By the way, the suits with the white shirt is looking pretty fly right now. Molly, you always look great.
Thank you.
Skip, you know. You look good today.
You can butter me up. You know what's coming, but I appreciate that.
Somebody's hyped today.
Yeah.
No. I must confess, I was actually looking for you to return the compliment, because I think.
Oh, you were fishing. It's called fishing for compliments.
I'm just saying.
You know what? You look stunning. You
look fantastic.
You look like the cover of GQ. That's what you look like.
Did you get the goatee shaped up?
Thank you so much.
It looks fantastic. Did I mention that?
He visited the barber shop.
My only regret today is I didn't wear the green suit with the yellow in it. I should have rocked that this morning.
Okay.
I really should have.
I get it. Green Bay.
I'm just saying.
This is going to be a good one, people. All right, let's work. We ready, Mr. Happy? Okay, he's ready.
I am.
All right, let's do it. Coming up, it was media day in the NBA yesterday. Why is Derrick Rose talking about free agency? We'll fill you in on what he said and what it means. And is this Kobe's final go-around? And we will also discuss LeBron as well. But first, to the NFL. Monday Night Football in Lambeau. Green Bay defending their home turf, beating Kansas City by 10. Aaron Rodgers doing what he does. Listen to this. The man has not thrown an interception in his last 16 regular season home games, 486 pass attempts with 0 picks. He threw 5 TDs last night, 3 to Randall Cobb, 1 to that rookie Ty Montgomery, and 1 to the newly reacquired James Jones.
I said before the game, if you said he was the best player in the league, it might be an understatement. People are like, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, what are you trying to say?
Just go with it, all right? I mean, think about it. What if Peyton Manning, what if Tom Brady could run? What if they could move? What if they could buy time? What if they could go sideline to sideline? You're watching what that would be like. You're seeing Aaron Rodgers with the mastery in the pocket, but then have the movement to go all over the field.
Oh, Skip, Monday Night Football action. Is Aaron Rodgers the best quarterback in the NFL?
Wait, is the question, did that prove? Did last night
prove? Did that prove it to you?
Okay. Are we really asking this question on the great show that is First Take? Because it's so beneath our dignity to ask such an outrageously out-of-bounds question. That last night proved that Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in pro football, when last night Aaron Rodgers had his way with a decimated Kansas City Chiefs secondary at home, where he is virtually invincible unless my Cowboys play there. And by the way, they will play there again, I think twice this year, but that's a whole nother issue. But we're talking about what Aaron Rodgers did, dinking and dunking against the absolutely decimated Kansas City Chiefs secondary down to Marcus Cooper starting at one of the cornerbacks, who probably, God bless the kid. I think he's from Bloomfield, Connecticut, by the way. A great place, Bloomfield.
Yeah, shout out to Connecticut.
But yeah, Rutgers and all that. But I'm not even sure he should have been on the field last night. And Aaron Rodgers victimized him again and again and again. And he starts off with a bombs away pass of 8 yards to the kid from Stanford, that Ty Montgomery, and then he goes, check this out, Stephen A. He goes pick play to Randall Cobb for a 3-yard touchdown, pick play to Randall Cobb for a 4-yard touchdown, pick play to Randall Cobb for another 4-yard touchdown. These are euphemistically called rub routes. They're just little goal line pick plays. They're candy from a baby when you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. And the one bombs away play of 27 yards to James Jones came on a cheap offsides penalty play where the Chiefs virtually stopped playing and everybody's looking at each other. And it's a free, cheap play for Aaron Rodgers to throw it to James Jones, who's basically not covered in the end zone. Easy touchdown. And you're trying to tell me that what he did last night would suddenly usurp the great Tom Brady, who should be insulted. We're even asking this question after this sensational start that he's had to this NFL season. I'm not sure any quarterbacks ever had a greater start to a season than Tom Brady has had so far. He did it to the Pittsburgh defense, which is showing me a lot this year. He torched the Pittsburgh defense. Remember that on Thursday Night Football? Tom Brady went to Buffalo with a high degree of difficulty against a Rex Ryan, who has been his nemesis, and he goes for 466 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game, and you're saying Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in pro football? I won't even talk about what Tom Brady did to Jacksonville, but he goes 33 of 42 with 2 more touchdowns, and he has now gone the most attempts through the first 3 games in NFL history without an interception. The great Tom Brady, who is 21-8 in the postseason, and last seen in the postseason, do I remember Aaron Rodgers stinking up the second half at Seattle in ways very few great quarterbacks have ever stunk up a second half, as they blew a 16-0 lead halfway through the third quarter? Are we talking about that Aaron Rodgers? Meanwhile, that was against the great Seattle Legion of Boom defense, which then went on to the Super Bowl, and in the fourth quarter got absolutely scorched by Tom Brady, who went 13 for 15 for 124 yards just in the fourth quarter and 2 touchdowns, as he was the Super Bowl MVP. Are you kidding me? Aaron Rodgers is 6-5 in the postseason. I'm not finished. It's your question. I'm going to answer it. Let me finish.
I'm waiting for me to get to it.
Aaron Rodgers is 6-5 in the postseason, and by the way, he's 2-4 since he last won that lonely Super Bowl long ago. 2-4, and you're bringing me that a game on Monday night at home against the Chiefs suddenly vaults him into best quarterback status in the NFL? Just stop it. Molly, we could go on to the next topic because you don't even deserve to answer this question.
Are you kidding me? Are you trying to shut me down
Yes.
and deny me the opportunity
Yes.
to respond to that ridiculous diatribe
Yeah, I
you
thought
just
it was
threw
brilliant.
out there?
Yeah.
You must be crazy. It was far from brilliant, okay? Let me tell you something, Skip Bayless. You got to remember something. I know you and your slick self, okay? You know what you just did? I noticed how you glossed over stuff. You highlighted what Tom Brady did, and you talked about, I know it was against Jacksonville, but blah, blah, blah. You brought up the decimated secondary of the Kansas City Chiefs. Fair enough. They were a bit decimated. They had 3 of their top 4 guys out last night, if I remember correctly. But here's the reality. Despite all of that, their defense is better than the Pittsburgh Steelers and what Tom Brady went against on opening night. Don't get me started with Jack. Oh, I do. I do. Maybe the Steelers defense is it's getting better.
Yeah.
But the Steelers defense that opened up the season, don't get me started with that. Aaron Rodgers, okay? He went against Chicago's defense, which even you acknowledged is upgraded, especially with John Fox as the head coach right now. And we'll get into them a little bit later because obviously they traded 2 guys. But let me just, I'm just saying respectable. I'm not saying they're lights out, but respectable. We know their offense and Jay Cutler, your Vanderbilt native. That's the problem with the Chicago Bears. It has nothing to do with their defense, okay? You got Chicago, then you had Seattle, game 2,
no
and
Cam.
then Kansas City
no Cam
yesterday.
at home. No Cam at home.
That's fine. That's fine. But Seattle's defense is still nothing to sneeze at without Cam. Cam just elevates it to an extremely elite level. But they're still better than most even without Cam. And then you got Kansas City yesterday. And then you look at Aaron Rodgers. Excuse me, nearly 500 passes at Green Bay at Lambeau Field, still without an interception. Lord knows how many touchdowns the man has thrown. The man is absolutely phenomenal.
Okay.
Well, it is phenomenal. Thank you very much for giving me that, okay? So you got a Green Bay Packers offense, by the way, making Starks, making Cobb, making, James Jones, everybody look like all pros because he's that dude. And by the way, I have what I consider to be a relatively impenetrable argument, Skip Bayless. And you know what that argument is? I don't have to make one. Steve Young, the great Steve Young, Hall of Famer Steve Young, sat up there last night and essentially confirmed it for me with what we played leading into the segment. Trent Dilfer co-signed it. Ray Lewis co-signed it. Chris Carter co-signed it. NFL aficionados all over the place. They talk about Aaron Rodgers' ability to throw the ball outside the pocket, inside the pocket.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I understand. I'm dealing with you. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you that the bottom line is you seem to be in complete and utter denial. We all know that Tom Brady is great. We know that he's fantastic. But when we talk about Aaron Rodgers, Steve Young could not have said it any better when he said, imagine Peyton Manning or Tom Brady being able to run, being able to scramble out of the pocket and do what they do. Because that is what Aaron Rodgers does. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady are phenomenal because they're guys who stand in the pocket and can fling that football second to none. We get that, and they're champions as well, which is not to be disrespected. But what Aaron Rodgers does, he does anywhere in the field. He does in the pocket. He does standing still. He does it tap dancing. He does it scrambling to his left, to his right. Even the cadences, with the way he's calling plays, drawing dudes off sides. Last night, the Kansas City Chiefs stopped the Packers on third down and forced a fourth down and were penalized all 3 times, primarily due to Aaron Rodgers. He knows how to scare you to death. You even hesitant in coming after him because you don't know what he's going to do to you next. You are never as helpless as you are once you're going up against Aaron Rodgers in the flow. Because he is something phenomenal. And I'm going to say it for you just to make you feel good. Say it with me, Skip. He's a bad man.
But come playoff time, he's often just bad. Just flat out bad. And I have to throw this in about the great Steve Young. What did he do great? What made him great? His legs as well as his arms. So he has a little bias toward Aaron because he relates.
Oh, come on.
Come on. Seriously. He wants to say he's doing it the way I did it. He did it the way Steve did it the best. Okay.
Wait a minute. The objectivity of Steve Young is something that he puts on display for 17 weeks a season every single year for us. Come on, Skip Bayless. Okay. You can't sit there and bring in the question.
I said it, and I stand by it. Okay. Now, you tell me he does it all over the football field. But you can't come back. You have no response to why he doesn't do it consistently when the money's on the line in the playoffs. My Cowboys, my underdog Cowboys should have won that game because it was a catch. We know it was a catch.
They didn't.
And they should have. Okay, but they didn't. But then he goes to Seattle, played a nice half. They're up 16-0 in the third quarter. Where was Aaron Rodgers when they needed him most? Nowhere to be found. Boy, could he scramble? Could he run? Could he get outside? Nope, he didn't do anything.
May I ask you a question, Skip Bayless? Bayless, let me ask you a question. How is it that you recall that it should have been a catch because it was a catch? How is it that you recall Seattle's second half performance, but you don't recall that throughout the entire playoffs last year, Aaron Rodgers was playing on one leg? One leg! What?
He was a little limpy.
One leg!
He was getting around okay.
That?
Well, he's got the greatest arm in history. That's what you tell me. The quickest release and the strongest arm. So he should be better than that.
I stand by that.
Okay.
I stand
Tom
by
Brady
that.
wasn't running around in the playoffs. And look what he did to the Legion of Boom. He boomed him. He knocked him out of the park.
You still need your legs to throw the football.
By the way, remember, Aaron Rodgers is 6-5 in the playoffs. Think about this. 4 of the 6 came on his Super Bowl roll that one year. And remember, he has to go on the road as the wild card team, and he beats Michael Vick in Philadelphia. He beats Matt Ryan, no Julio Jones yet there. Matt Ryan really struggling as a young quarterback. I don't know about that.
I love how you say this.
Jay Cutler. Wait a second. He beats Jay Cutler in Chicago. Jay Cutler couldn't go in the second half, and you're the one who said he's overriding his bicycle in the second half. It's Caleb Haney in the second half. And go look at the numbers. Aaron Rodgers stunk up that second half and almost lost a chance to go to the Super Bowl to Caleb Haney. Then in the Super Bowl, Troy Polamalu, remember this? He couldn't run. He had a pulled hamstring, shouldn't even tried to play. So Aaron Rodgers victimized Ryan Clark in the secondary. Okay?
I have a response. You know what, Skip Bayless? I recall Tom Brady, every time he goes up against an elite defense, because Denver certainly was no elite defense, okay? But every time he's going up, the Colts certainly it was no elite defense, but every time he's going up against an elite defense, a la the Baltimore Ravens in Ray Lewis's last year, he got his butt kicked. When he went to the Giants in the Super Bowl twice, and they got after him, he neutralized them, okay?
Yeah, he's 21-8 with 4 rings. 21-8 with 4 rings. Case closed.
I'm sorry. You got to speak. I don't get to say something. I don't get to. What, you scared? You scared?
We don't like what you're saying.
I mean, why don't you listen? Why don't you listen? Well, just because you don't like it doesn't mean that you get to interrupt me. Zip it when I'm talking to you. Here's the deal. When Aaron Rodgers goes up against elite defenses, and I'm sorry, Tom Brady goes up against elite defenses, he has tended to not show up. Now, he did win the Super Bowl last year against Seattle. But, again, you want to bring up stuff. I saw Cam Chancellor hurt. I saw Richard Sherman hurt. I saw Earl Thomas hurt. But you want to bypass that. You want to ignore the fact that he got beat up by the Baltimore Ravens when they were healthy and they were elite. You want to ignore and attribute it to luck as to why the New York Giants beat them twice in the Super Bowl.
It was when the luckiest play in Super Bowl history.
Did Tom Brady, hold on, Tom Brady not laugh? Not laugh at the thought of him being held to just 17 points, and he was held to 14 points. But you ignore that. But you want to bring up everything about Aaron Rodgers, whose defense has always been suspect in Green Bay. He's a bad boy. Somewhere along the lines, you're going to learn to accept this reality. Eventually, Aaron Rodgers is a bad boy.
And say Tom Brady. That's what I'm going to say. Yes.
All right, guys. This is fun, but we have to move on. So there is an obvious divide here. Stephen A. thinks that bad man is the best in the league, while, of course, Skip's not riding with it. What do you think? Let us know on Twitter if you think Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL by replying yes or no to the hashtag #BestNFLPasser. Speaking of Tom Brady and the Patriots, they look poised to potentially make another run like they did back in 2007. If you look at their numbers so far this season, they're actually better than that year when they had an undefeated regular season. Now, in case you forgot, that was the year Spygate allegations were swirling. We all know by now the Patriots are even better when their back is against the wall. It appears they don't just want to win, but win big. With Deflategate in their hindsight, sort of, it looks like something special could potentially happen yet again. It's New England versus everybody. Skip, what are the chances this Patriots team goes 16-0?
Molly, Stephen A., I don't want to jinx my Patriots by saying they're going to go 16-0. I'm just going to say it's extremely likely. It's extremely probable they will go 16-0 because the great Tom Brady is on an 07-like mission to show the NFL what he thinks of Deflategate. Deflate this. He's going to deflate every opponent in a row. He's taking it out. He's going psycho Tom on foe after foe after foe. The other day I was talking to the great Jay Feely, a close friend of Tom Brady's, and he said, I'll clean it up a little bit, a ticked-off Tom Brady is a thing of beauty. I like that line a lot because it is. It's a thing of beauty, except for those people who have to try to stop him. And a lot of teams are going to have a big problem stopping Tom Brady, including one game on a Sunday night at Indy, October 18th. That's going to be, in Brady's eyes, the dirty rats game. You know, the people who the whistleblower game for Tom Brady. Do you really think the Colts are going to stop the Patriots that night, even in Indianapolis? I do not think so. I think he will really take it out on Andrew Luck and company that night for turning them in that night. Obviously, AFC Championship game in Foxborough, which started Deflategate. Then they do have a tricky game against Peyton Manning at Denver. Maybe Peyton's a little, so to speak, ticked off because of what got divulged when all the text messages came out, the emails came out, that Tom Brady took a little shot, a competitive shot at Peyton. Maybe he will rise to that occasion. I don't think so. Even though he's got a defense to back him up this year, Peyton does in Denver, I think that the Patriots might be a slight favorite in that game. It'd be close, but maybe slight favorites. That's a dicey game, but I would give that to New England. And then finally, December 27th, second to the last game, versus the arch-rival Jets at Jets. That'll be a tough one. It could come down to that. They could be 14-0 at that point. Would you give that to Todd Bowles and Darrelle Revis? I don't know. Not after what we saw, obviously, last Sunday, but I think that'll be a dicey game. So I'm going to say at Denver, at Jets, 2 possibly losable games, but not likely. So can I envision 16-0 with Tom Brady at the helm, driving this bus? You better believe I can.
I can't. I think that the New England Patriots will definitely lose 1, likely go 14-2, possibly go 13-3. They will not go undefeated, because the one that I am absolutely booking, obviously considering all things being equal, meaning everyone being healthy and just looking at the personnel that both teams have and how they're playing, I believe that the Denver Broncos will beat New England in Denver. That's the one that I'm not wavering on one bit. The Patriots will lose to the Denver Broncos so long as all the bodies remain intact and everybody remains healthy. Okay? The other 2 possibilities, I don't consider the Bills to be one of them. I think on the road in New England, I don't believe that the Bills will be able to do it. I think that the Jets have a shot. They'll get annihilated at MetLife Stadium, in New England. But I think at MetLife Stadium on December 27th, I believe the Jets have a chance at winning that game.
Yep.
And I do believe that the other game that I'm going to look at is, I think the Giants have a chance of beating the Patriots on November 15th.
I'm surprised you didn't bring that up right away. That's the one I circled for you. Right. I thought you'd go right to that game.
I think that the Giants on November 15th, assuming Victor Cruz is back by then, with Odell Beckham Jr. and Ruben Randle, with a guy like Shane Vereen, who has some degree of familiarity, even though we know Bill Belichick's a genius and he knows how to switch things up.
Yep.
I think Shane Vereen will be familiar with them to some degree and will be able to school them on at least a few things that the New England Patriots may do that afternoon. I expect that to be a high-scoring contest, but I think the Giants will make just enough plays. I'm still reserving the right to pick that game. I don't know. It depends on what I see from the Giants in the coming weeks. But right now, I would say to you, it's a possibility that New England is going to lose two or three of those games. Denver, at the Jets, and at the Giants. I don't think they'll lose 2 games at MetLife Stadium, but I definitely believe they'll lose 1.
You know, now that you remind me, it is possible that Eli Manning would just close his eyes in the last few seconds and just throw it as far as he could, and it would stick in somebody's face mask, and it would change the game. Maybe that would set up the winning field goal. So that's possible.
Or
is his name Eli Luck? We should change his last name to Luck.
No, we shouldn't.
No?
How many rings does he have?
You're the one.
Oh, yeah.
2 lucky rings.
How many do
He's got 2.
Yeah, Tony? Oh, yeah. I can't remember that.
Yeah.
You're the one that sits up there and laments Super Bowl championships based on luck. We don't care. We'll take it any way that we can get it.
Well, that's the only way you're going to get it from Tom Brady.
With your teams as well.
Yeah.
Damn
Whatever.
right.
Yeah.
He ain't winning Super Bowl this year.
All right. Stephen A. says the Patriots will go 14-2.
To Seattle.
To the association, over the last 4 years, Derrick Rose has played in 100 of a possible 312 games with the Bulls, which comes out to just 32%. Rose made it very clear during Monday's media day that his priority list starts with free agency in 2 years.
It's here, but when you talk about that much money, only thing you could do is prepare for it. I'm trying to prepare not only myself but my family, and doing this always for my son. Like I said, I'm thinking about his future. Even though we're all right, we're comfortable. When you talk about that X amount of dollars, I think it raised everyone's eyebrows. So there's nothing wrong with being over prepared.
Stephen A., are you okay with Derrick Rose talking about free agency right now?
No, I am not, to be quite honest with you. And I must confess to you that it's very, very difficult for me to talk about Derrick Rose in any negative kind of fashion, because as a basketball player representing the Chicago Bulls, if you get around him and you talk to him, he just seems like one of the nicest people in the world, to be quite honest with you. But when you listen to some of the comments that he makes, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Derrick Rose has been in the league for 6 years. A couple of years ago, obviously, he had that devastating knee injury. Skip Bayless, in the 2011-2012 season, he missed 43 games. 2012, 2013, he was out the whole year. Okay? 2013, 2014, he missed 72 of the 82 games. And last year, he missed another 31 games. We were just relieved to see him play in the playoffs. And the last time we saw him, he was getting outplayed by Matthew Dellavedova.
True.
So I'm sitting here and I'm saying, considering all of this and the fact that you got paid $93 million by the Chicago Bulls, I have no problem with him thinking about his future, thinking about the well-being of his family, etc. But you know something? We sit up here and let's think about the guys that we have been critical of in increments, in moments. Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, James Harden, not so much Kevin Durant, because we rarely say anything. I mean, who says anything negative about Kevin Durant? Carmelo Anthony. I mean, you look at these guys, Skip. They are rough riders. They go out there and compete and bring it every night. They don't cheat the fans. I don't care how much James Harden struggled the last time we saw him against Golden State. He played a hellacious game in Game 5 of that series, and there was games sporadically where he showed up. So, yeah, he didn't have the kind of series his talents demand, but he didn't cheat anybody. You know what I'm saying? This guy goes out there, he performs. Kevin Durant, when healthy, is an elite performer. LeBron James, I mean, please, what else is there to say about this guy in terms of his effort? We all know that Kobe Bryant was only out, for the last 2 years because of devastating injuries. If Kobe Bryant could have played with any of those injuries, he would have. This guy doesn't cheat the game. Dwayne Wade, despite his myriad of injuries, always found a way to be ready come playoff time. The list goes on and on and on. You don't hear them talking like this because they know if they go out there and perform, everything else will take care of itself. Yet somehow, some way, without performing, largely due to health, of course, Derrick Rose has missed a large chunk of the last 3 NBA seasons of his career while being paid in excess of $16-17 million each season. And he's talking about looking forward to free agency and his future with a couple of years left. It just seems to me that he doesn't appear to have the focus that an elite championship caliber player is supposed to have. I know he has the talent when healthy. I'm not questioning that. And I know he goes hard when he's out on the court. But this attitude that he seems to verbalize, if I'm the organization and I'm hearing that from him, I got to call him to the office and sit him down and have a long conversation with him about a fan base that's out there and about some rough riders who are his contemporaries in the NBA and say to him, do you see what they're doing? And at this juncture, they're enjoying more success than you. Do you not get it? Because he doesn't seem to get it right now. And I'm saddened by that because I do believe, again, I don't know him personally because I know he's had some issues and, I'm not here to comment about that. But the Derrick Rose that I know, that I've met, that I've spoken to in a Bulls uniform at the United Center seems to be one of the nicest dudes I've ever met, and it's almost impossible to root against him. I just don't understand why he keeps saying this kind of stuff. Because if I'm that Chicago fan base, which is phenomenal,
it is,
I'm incredibly upset by these comments.
I am so with you and then some on this issue. And as you remember, I was a columnist at the Chicago Tribune. That was pre-Derrick Rose. But I have a feel for the city of Chicago. and the sad part of this ongoing story to me is that never has the city of Chicago more wanted to open its heart and embrace a young superstar than it did Derrick Rose. He is they. He was raised by them. He grew up in Chicago. He's one of their own, a native son. They loved him, and he can come off as such a sweet, good kid. Works hard, plays hard. We know, won an MVP, and it all seems so right, and then it started to go so wrong, and it just gets a little more wrong with each media session that Derrick does. And I don't understand it. I don't know who's advising him or not advising him, but just the mere prospect, after all that you detailed, after Derrick Rose over the last 3 years has made $17.6 million 3 years ago, then $18.9 million 2 years ago, I'm sorry, 1 year ago, and then now he's scheduled to make $20 this year, $20 million. And to your point, just to sum it up, over the last 4 years, he's played 100 of a possible 328 games. He's played 30% of the Bulls games over the last 4 years. And you're asking Bulls fans, and many of my friends are already done with Derrick Rose, but you're asking them to swallow this, that you need to think about leaving Chicago in 2 years, not next year, but in 2 years. You're just going to throw it out. Yeah, I got to think about leaving, going somewhere else for bigger money, because I got to make sure my son is comfortable. That's not going to fly in Chicago. You've made all that money for not much work, and you want to make sure your son is comfortable. Trust me, Stephen A., that won't play with the rich people up in Highland Park, north of Chicago. They won't swallow this. You just can't say that publicly, not when they've hung with you as far as they can hang with you. They've gone right to the edge with you, and now you're saying, you know, and this is my psychological, I'm going to play armchair psychologist. Derrick also indicated in that interview at another spot that he's got a little chip on his shoulder because he read and heard through the offseason that some Bulls fans don't think he's now healthy enough or will ever be healthy enough to have the same MVP-like impact he used to have. And he sat up and said, hey, I'm still great. So he's going to take it out on those. I hope it's not Twitter people that he's reading, his Twitter responses. But he's going to take it out on them by dangling the prospect, I got to position myself here. I might have to leave Chicago. You just can't say it because the bridge is already on fire and burned almost to the ground, and now you just poured gasoline on top of what's left of the bridge with the fire underneath it. I don't know what he's thinking, but this is going to do him in before you know it in Chicago because there's not much love left for him.
Well, the thing about it is I think the love can easily be recaptured if he goes out there and perform because by and large, they recognize him to be a nice kid, even though we need to stop calling him a kid. He turns 27, in a few days, to be honest with you. Yeah. But with that being said, he also needs to understand that in this world that we're living in, and you know how political I can get, Skip, in terms of just watching politics and things of that nature, paying attention to the economy, the job rate, labor participation, all of these different things. You signed a $93 million contract and you're talking about worrying about your kid. Well, somebody's going to ask you, what the hell are you doing with your money? What are you talking about? Now, granted, it's always more money to be made. Please don't get me wrong.
I get that.
And you know what a capitalist I am. If the money is out there to be made, go ahead and make it. But how is it that you have an issue looking forward to your future, acting as if you're worried when you're already collecting $93 million to 30% of the work that you were supposed to put in? So all of those things definitely resonates, man. And you got to wonder right now, Skip, I got to admit, I never thought I'd say this. You've got to wonder whether or not the Chicago Bulls should trade him. And I'm not talking about immediately. I'm talking about trade him when his value elevates, because if you're giving indications that you may not want to be here, and there's a place that you can go where we can get the right comparable kind of value for you, that is something they might want to consider, because he is being paid like a franchise player. But if he's not going to act like somebody who wants to be the face of the franchise and to be here for years to come, it's Chicago, man. It's the house Jordan built. You got to get somebody in there that wants to be there.
I'm with you.
Can I ask one question before we go to break? Obviously, he's asked about free agency. How would you have liked to see him handle that? To just say, I'm not focused on that. We're trying to get past Cleveland, and I'm trying to stay healthy first. Just don't address it?
Absolutely, Molly. Absolutely, Molly, because there's no excuse for it, not only because it's 2 years away, but because of what you know you haven't been able to give due to injury. Considering that you homegrown, the level of affection you feel you have expressed that you have for the locals because you are one of them. I didn't hear him talk about leaving, Skip. I heard him talking about free agency, looking forward to getting paid.
Yeah.
But the first order of business is to produce. And you can't produce if you don't show up to work every day. It ain't his fault that he didn't show up to work because obviously he got hurt.
No.
And that's legitimate.
No, I got it.
But you don't come off of that. Remember, we didn't see him injured and then he's back now talking. The last time we saw him, he was playing healthy and got outplayed by a third-string point guard named Matthew Dellavedova. Now, that's just embarrassing.
Okay.
That's just embarrassing.
Football's back, and it already feels like the playoffs thanks to 1 Week Fantasy at DraftKings.com. With millions of dollars in prizes being paid out each week, every play in every game could take you closer to a life-changing payday. Hurry to DraftKings.com now. Use promo code TAKE and play for free with your first deposit in this Sunday's $1 million fantasy contest. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Enter TAKE for free entry now only at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
Bruce Arians has his Cardinals team on point right now. With a potent offense and a playmaking defense, they appear to be the team to beat in the NFC right now. After thumping the Niners, the Cardinals have now outscored their opponents by 77 points in the team's first 3 games. 4 of the 5 teams since 1980 to accomplish the same feat went on to play in the Super Bowl. So according to FPI, Arizona has better than a 50% chance to win each of its remaining 13 games. Skip, you just heard all the numbers.
Yep.
Are the undefeated Cardinals a threat to really win the Super Bowl this year?
Stephen A., we got to meet Bruce Arians, you'll recall, at the ESPYs a couple of years ago, spent a little time with him. I really like this guy.
Yep.
I think he might be the best offensive mind in pro football. And what he is doing with later career Carson Palmer and now a later career Chris Johnson is just sensational.
And Larry Fitz.
And Larry Fitz, that's another good one. They're revitalized, all 3 of them, at advanced ages. I can't get sold on this team as a Super Bowl threat because it's built, to me, upside down. The offensive line's just okay. Might be even a little below average. The defensive line's below average. The front 7 on defense, not great. But, boy, you get to the skills positions, obviously on offense with the quarterback who's playing at an extremely high level right now, even though we don't have a great measuring stick because the opponents have been that New Orleans struggling defense in week 1, Chicago's struggling offense more in week 2, and then the suddenly really struggling San Francisco defense this past Sunday. And I don't know yet. Not sure about that. But they can score and score quickly because of Chris Johnson, that little kid David Johnson they have at running back. I love Ellington. He can't stay healthy, but if they get him healthy, they're going to have a real deep firepower at running back. They have a deep receiving corps. You mentioned Larry Fitz, John Brown, and it just gets deeper and deeper. They can flat out score the football. And on defense, there is no more potent cornerback safety combo than Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu. It's just sensational what they can do. You can have Richard Sherman and Cam if you want to, but these guys are right there, if not a touch ahead of them. But they're built kind of from the back end up. That when you get to the forward half of the offense and the defense, it's not great. And I look at Carson Palmer's record. He's 0-2 lifetime in the playoffs. And in Arizona, he did beat Seattle at Seattle in a Week 13 game 2 years ago, a game in which Carson Palmer threw 4 interceptions, and they somehow won that game 17-10, and I don't know how they won it. But he has managed not to face Seattle since then, and now if he stays healthy, God bless him the rest of the way, he's going to have to go to the Seahawks on November 15th. They also go to the Steelers before that. Then they close with at Eagles, then Packers on December 27th, which could be a great matchup, and then Seahawks at home on January 3rd. Could be another great matchup. I want to see Carson Palmer against the premier competition because we haven't seen a lot of that in his time being upright in Arizona. He lasted 6 games last year, and they really didn't play anybody of note in those 6 games. So I just need to see a little bit more. I root for Bruce Arians. I root for Carson Palmer. They're fun to watch, but are they built to last? I'm sorry, I'm not sure about that.
Skip Bayless, I'm with you. I'm not sure about it either, but I think I'm a tad bit more positive about them than you are because where you and I differ is that you think the offensive line is so-so. I'm not willing to go that far. I'm willing to give them a little bit more props than that, whether it's this kid Cooper, whether it's Valde only gave up a sack last year. I mean, I'm just looking at some of these guys, and then Uapati they got in the offseason. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Mm-hmm. Consider this, Skip Bayless. You have a situation where Carson Palmer has only thrown 1 or 2 interceptions on the season. He's only been sacked 1 time, and the trio of Ellington, and he's got to get back healthy, along with David Johnson and Chris Johnson, are each averaging better than 4 yards a carry out of the backfield running the football for this team. So if you give me an offensive line and you show me that every running back is averaging over 4 yards a carry, and you combine that with the fact that they've only surrendered 1 sack on the year, I got to give props where props is due. I said Carson Palmer only threw 2 interceptions. It was 2 interceptions that he's only thrown. He's already thrown 9 touchdown passes, which brings in another guy's name into the equation. Larry Fitzgerald came out of nowhere. He's usually your wideout. Once upon a time, one of the elite wide receivers in the game. But Bruce Arians had to sit down and have a talk with that man to let him know that father time, age, attrition is catching up to you just a little bit. I still can utilize you and make you a vital component of this offense, but you need to roll with what I'm trying to do. So now you see Larry Fitzgerald playing more in the slot, more so than he's playing on the outside. When you can look at that, and then you notice that he's got 28 receptions. I mean, what is it for here? Let me look at this number here right here, Skip. He's got 28 receptions for 333 yards, averaging 14.5 yards a catch. We didn't think that we would see those kind of numbers from a Larry Fitzgerald again, but that's what we're seeing. So if you've got Larry Fitzgerald with a John Brown who's got 17 receptions all of himself, and then you look at the trio of running backs, and you look at the fact that Carson Palmer can fling that football, particularly long range. Granted, first 3 games, New Orleans, 31 points, Chicago, 48 points, San Francisco, 47 points. We'll see what's going on. But when you talk to all the NFL experts, which I do constantly, particularly on my radio show, what they say to me, Skip, is this. Every time I bring up the Cowboys or I bring up Green Bay, they always say, don't forget Arizona. These guys went into Seattle a couple of years ago when they weren't the same team, beat Seattle. They're not scared of Seattle. They look forward to going up against Seattle and anybody else. You know from last year how they walked into Dallas and they beat Dallas last year. So when I look at it from that perspective, that's right. That's fair. But when I look at that, what it forces me to say is, what if they win enough games where they had some games in Arizona when it counts with the offensive brilliance of a guy like Bruce Arians and those corners? Because when you got Peterson and Tyron, I don't think you can summarily dismiss this team. They are playmakers. And even though Colin Kaepernick ain't the greatest example because he looks to have regressed, to pick 6 him that early on 2 occasions, early in the game Sunday, tells me that you have an elite secondary that's going to require an elite quarterback. But what I'm saying, y'all, is that an elite quarterback is going to have to beat them, and that's by playing elite, not just being elite. You're going to have to play elite against them, and that's what I think makes them very, very interesting.
Okay, so your Super Bowl pick is Seattle. So what's going to happen at Seattle on November 15th and at Arizona on January 3rd? What happens in those 2 games?
I believe they split. I believe that they lose 1 game and they win 1 game against Seattle. I definitely believe that, but I'm not wavering from my pick that the Legion of Boom will go back to the Super Bowl, because I believe that whatever mission Tom Brady and the Patriots are on because of Deflategate, Seattle is on a bigger mission because they believe they gave away a Super Bowl when Pete Carroll made the worst call in NFL history by not giving Marshawn Lynch the ball a half yard away.
That bad man on December 27th plays at Arizona a couple days after Christmas. Is it a Christmas present for you? Does Aaron Rodgers win that game, or does Arizona win that game?
I would favor Arizona, and I'd like you to keep in mind, I am an Aaron Rodgers fan, not a Green Bay Packers fan. I think that Aaron Rodgers can play at an elite level and still lose, and I think that's definitely plausible against Arizona.
Okay, so it sounds like you have Arizona losing only a couple of games, maybe.
I think Arizona's got a chance to go 12-4, 13-3. I think they're going to really battle nip and tuck with Seattle for the NFC West, and I think Seattle is behind the 8 ball because they lost those first 2 games, so they're already 2 games behind Arizona, and because they're going to split, they're going to remain 2 games behind, so Arizona is going to have to lose 2 additional games, all right, preferably within the conference, in order to pull out the NFC West. And I think that's a really, really hard sell at this particular moment in time to assume is going to take place.
Okay, I'm just saying no Super Bowl threat here in Arizona.
You can't replace 2 All-Stars. There's no team in NBA history been able to to win a championship with 2 of their All-Stars not playing. And I tried as much as I could, and everyone else down from myself tried as hard as we could. But we were going against a team that had more health, and was clicking on all cylinders at the right time.
LeBron making light of the fact that injuries to Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving were a major factor why the Cavaliers came up short against the Warriors in the NBA Finals. The Cavs are the favorites to return to the Finals this season. Skip, what do you make of LeBron's comments?
Stephen A. Smith, I don't want to be too hard on LeBron because it's very, very early. Camps are just now opening. And LeBron and his team are going to be very, very good again this year, quite obviously. But given all that, given how high I set my bar for the great LeBron James, even this early, I did not want to hear him look back at last year's finals and make excuses for what happened. I did not want to hear the great LeBron James deflect any blame onto the injuries to 2 all-star teammates for what happened in the NBA Finals last year. Because, Stephen A. Smith, I know they all tried hard. They were a little overmatched. Didn't have the depth that they needed to hang in, sustain. But I'm going to remind everybody that the Cleveland Cavaliers were up 2-1 with Game 4 in LeBron's house in Cleveland, Ohio. We were there that night for that game. You want to talk about closing the deal there? If you go up 3-1, I think they're going to close that deal. I thought that was a great opportunity for the great LeBron James to validate his greatness and his all-time greatest case against Michael Jordan. If you could carry that band of misfits to a title, even though Tristan Thompson had emerged as a flat-out force in the finals, underrated force, I thought, with Mozgov. If you could carry that team without Kyrie, without Kevin Love to a title, wow, the world would have said, that's it, LeBron, you did it. That's your greatest achievement. And what happened that night? 103-82 happened. Golden State, rout in LeBron's house, as LeBron went 7 for 22, only 5 of 10 from the free throw line, 1 of 4 from 3. His teammates gave him little to no help. We know what they all did. J.R. Smith was 0 for 8 from 3, and Dellavedova was 2 for 9. But even for the whole playoff run, for one playoff run, LeBron James, for any player who's ever taken more than 100 threes in a playoff run, shot 22.7%. That's for the last year's playoffs. That's the worst in playoff history, 22.7%. So you got to take a little bit of blame for that, Stephen A. You got to take a little bit of blame for Game 4. And I know you told me the next day he just ran out of gas. And I've been thinking about that. Even last night I thought about it. This is the greatest conditioned athlete in the NBA. I give you that. I believe that. Nobody takes better care of himself than LeBron. So he runs out of gas in Game 4 of the Finals? Is that why we're going to have more time off between Finals games this year, so LeBron has a little better chance to refill his tank for the next game? I don't know. But I expected more from King James that night, and we didn't get it. And that was basically the end of last year's Finals.
The season hasn't even started yet. It's the first day of media day. And already, I believe that you're being completely unfair to this man. Now, we work every day here on First Take. And we're going to give it to you straight. We're going to tell you what we believe. We ain't going to sugarcoat it. Try to be respectful. But at the same time, we're just going to be real because we got an audience that's watching, and that's what they expect from us, and they should. But in the interest of fairness, we also have to be completely honest. We can't just tell the stories that we want to tell. We got to sit there and tell the whole story. LeBron James was absolutely positively dominant over the first 3 games. Even the first game, that they lost. He had 44, 8, and 6. And then he went on from there with triple-doubles all over the place. Yes, he had a bad game in Game 4. Yeah, it looked like he ran out of gas. Because Kyrie Irving went down in Game 1. He had to carry the load in Game 2 and 3, all right? And he seemed flat out positively exhausted. You were there in Cleveland. You saw how rabid those folks were. You know that LeBron James didn't have the luxury of just playing a basketball game, the interviews and everything else, just the whole atmosphere, the adrenaline rush. It conceivably got the best of him. So what does he do? After that bad game, where he sat up there and didn't play well and looked completely fatigued, where Matthew Dellavedova, who you were raving about, acting like this dude was Kyrie Irving, he ends up shooting 3 for 14 in that game. And then J.R. Smith also shot 2 of 12 in that same game. The very next game, which was Game 5, LeBron had 40, 14, and 11. They still lost that game. And then the closeout, because he got no help, and then the closeout Game 6, he had 32, 18, and 9. What I'm saying to you is that when you look at the Golden State Warriors, they're either great or they're not. This wasn't about Steph Curry. This was also about Andre Iguodala. This was about Steve Kerr making that adjustment, inserting Andre Iguodala into the starting lineup, seating Andrew Bogut. And then after that, running the ball up and down the floor. Remember, the first couple of games, Golden State was very methodical in trying to match the size of a Tristan Thompson with Mozgov in terms of putting in a big lineup of their own. So you played at a slower pace. LeBron was able to catch a breath. As a result, he wasn't as worn out. And then Steve Kerr made that adjustment. You can't sit there and appreciate the greatness of what we're seeing from Golden State all year long and then ignore that because you want to get on LeBron's performance in 1 game out of 6 in the NBA Finals, where the other 5, the brother showed up. I would be the first to get on LeBron James. Hell, he still hasn't gotten over how I called him out when they played badly against Dallas when he was with Miami. But that is the only thing that I have to say about LeBron, which he openly later admitted that he could have played better in that NBA Finals, similar to James Harden being sensitive because of how he disappeared in the Finals against Miami, which is the only negative thing I've ever said about him, really. But when you look at LeBron and how he played last year in that Finals without Kyrie Irving and without Kevin Love for those last 5 games, and with J.R. Smith, admittedly, being one-dimensional, knowing that he's too talented to just be some daggone spot-up shooter, that he should be doing better than that. There is no question that this is one legitimate time, actually the second time, because the first time he lost to the San Antonio Spurs in 2007, we all knew that their championship was getting to the finals. They had no shot against the Spurs. And last year, after Love and Kyrie went down, come on now, the only hope they had was for LeBron to be LeBron and to get a speck of help. And he got no help offensively those last 3 games. You got to be fair enough to say that, Skip. You can't ask that man to do but so much. That's not right. Yes, you can. That's just
How many times last year did I agree with you? LeBron James is the best player on the planet. Did I not always say you're right?
Yeah.
He's the best player.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the best player gets it to 2-1 Cleveland with another game in Cleveland, man, I'm going to expect him to be the best player on the planet that night, and he was not. I also would expect him yesterday to say, you know what, we were up 2-1, and I ran out of gas. If he'd said that yesterday, I'd say, I got it. I feel you, because it sure looked like you ran out of gas. Yes,
you would have got on him for saying that.
I would not.
You would have got on him for saying that. You would have said he must have drank a couple of Sprites, or he must not have worked out, even though he's a workout dude. You would have said something if he had said, I just ran out of gas. Well, yes, you would have. And by the way, Skip, let's keep in mind, I would agree with you. If LeBron spent the rest of the series, had he ran out of gas so much that he had nothing left for games 4, 5, and 6. But the fact is, it was just one game. You know, it ain't about comparing him to Jordan or anybody else. It's about understanding that even though he's the best player in the world, Golden State was the best team in the world last year. They played better than everybody else, and they have more weapons, along with the reigning league MVP, who is the greatest shooter we have ever seen. They went small, and they were running up and down the court. They changed the pace. You also acknowledge that there were some issues with Black and how he was learning the ropes in his first year as an NBA coach. You acknowledge that J.R. Smith has to do better and has to do more, because when he's not shooting well, he doesn't seem to do anything right. And now he has to graduate from that position. You acknowledge that Iman Shumpert can defend, but he is no shooter. All of a sudden, an epiphany hits you, and you recognized and remembered that Matthew Dellavedova is Matthew Dellavedova, a serviceable player who belongs in the NBA, but he's no starting point guard.
Wait a second.
This is what LeBron was dealing with.
What happened in Game 2 and Game 3? The deli was open, was it not? Did he
played well?
Did he not make some clutch plays and clutch shots in both those games? LeBron got his help. He got his help, and they're up 2-1. Well, I'm raising my bar.
That's why they were up 2-1.
I want the best player on the planet to play better than he played at home in Game 4.
That's why they were up 2-1.
Okay.
Hold on. That's why they were up 2-1.
Yeah.
Because he got a contribution from somebody else. Even when he was doing it by himself, he still lost Game 1. And then when Matthew Dellavedova subbed admirably for Kyrie Irving in games 2 and 3, they won those games. So he didn't have any help.
Okay.
That's my point.
But even
he didn't have any help
you
the last
admitted
3
to me
games.
the next day, LeBron just came out flat. He just looked lifeless. He looked without energy. Really? This is a chance to just drop the hammer, and you come out flat. You come out drained. I don't get it.
If you don't have it, Skip, you don't have it.
Okay.
What do you mean you don't get it? You see, that's where. Hold on, wait a minute. Forget all that. That's where you're disingenuous, because you've covered enough basketball to know that some days you don't have it. Now you can't not have it for a series.
There's some games you better have it for.
But if LeBron had played this, hold on. If LeBron had played this way in games 4, 5, and 6, you'd have a point. If there were a game 7, then you have a point. But if you up 2-1 and you don't show for game 4 because you out of gas, but you come back in games 5 and 6, then you got to acknowledge that man ran out of gas and call it what it is. You can't sit up there and just ignore all the stuff that was happening around him. That's not fair.
Okay.
That's not fair.
I'm with you. The most fit player on the planet and the greatest player on the planet ran out of gas in a pivotal game 4. I'm with you.
Oh, gentlemen.
He had no help.
We gotta go to break.
You're just hating.
You're just
hating right now.
That's what
you do.
No shows off for Skip
on media
Bayless.
day.
Yeah.
Hating on media day.
Truth-telling to start the year.
Guys, here's the good news.
Please.
We get to see a healthy Cleveland team this year, and we can discuss after. No excuses, right?
Yeah,
that's not true.
If they run into a healthy Spurs, we're going to have a whole nother.
Hopefully.
We don't know that about Kyrie.
Okay.
We don't know if Kyrie going to be healthy.
Hopefully healthy. This is going to be fun, people. Aaron Rodgers was a bad man last night, throwing for 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the Packers' 38-28 win over the Chiefs. It was the 4th time in his career Rodgers threw 5 passing TDs, and he now has gone 16 regular season games at home without throwing an interception. Rodgers has the greatest TD to interception ratio in NFL history of quarterbacks who have at least 1,500 attempts. And you may have heard about the other guys on this list. Second, Tom Brady, then Peyton Manning, Tony Romo. In 5th, Steve Young. You know what, Stephen A? The floor is all yours, my friend. Take it away.
You know, it's interesting that you highlighted those things. I definitely appreciate it, particularly that last stat with TD, the interception ratio. I have to listen to my compatriot across that table, whether it's via satellite or sitting right across from him in studio on far too many occasions, listening to his drivel about how Aaron Rodgers is not that bad of a man, how he talks about Tom Brady. It's so disgusting, so nauseating, so insulting, so disrespectful. I have decided to put Skip Bayless on the spot with a simple question. I believe that Aaron Rodgers will go down, when all is said and done, he will go down as the greatest quarterback in history. Talent-wise.
In history?
I believe talent-wise. Talent-wise. Certainly not yardage with Peyton Manning, the Brett Favres of the world, even Tom Brady, people like that. But talent-wise, I believe right now Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback I have ever seen. With that in mind, Skip, I have a simple question for you. Give me 5. You don't even have, I'm not even talking about the present. I will give you history. The history of the National Football League. Give me 5 quarterbacks right now who you believe is better than Aaron Rodgers talent-wise. In history,
okay.
I dare you. The floor is yours.
We got to define this question, because you threw in the little tricky caveat there about talent-wise. Is it not production? When we talk about quarterback play, isn't it what you did when it really mattered the most? Isn't that how we would define quarterback greatness? Or are we just doing eye test talent?
Skip, you can define. All I'm saying to you is this. You can define it anywhere you want, devoid of championships. Because Dan Marino never won one, and we all know he's one of the greatest ever. John Elway won 2, and the last 2 he won before he retired. That's when he had Terrell Davis. But we all know how great he was. Fran Tarkenton lost 4 Super Bowls. Jim Kelly lost 4 Super Bowls. But we know how great they were as quarterbacks. So we ain't talking championships, okay? Because that doesn't define your greatness as a quarterback, because this is a team sport. I'm asking you, omit that category. The floor is yours. Give me 5 quarterbacks in the history of football better than that man, Aaron Rodgers.
Here we go.
Okay, so I need to remind our viewers up front, just for the record, that the baddest man, says Stephen A., Aaron Rodgers, is 6-5 in the postseason. 6-5. That includes 4 straight wins as a wild card team to win his lone Super Bowl. And since that Super Bowl, long ago, he's 2-4 in the postseason. That's the guy we're trying to make this case for, okay?
That's right. Let me pause before you get into that. Tom Brady went the last 10 years without a Super Bowl until Darrell Revis arrived last year.
Games Keep going. To? Yeah, and he got to the 2 Super Bowls. Okay.
Keep going.
So right now, just to stay current, obviously I'll take Tom Brady any day of the week, especially on Sunday, over Aaron Rodgers, because Tom Brady is 21-8 in the postseason, and he has 4 rings, 4 Super Bowl rings, and Bill Belichick should drop down on his knees and thank God every night that Tom Brady fell into his lap in 2001. Next on my list is obviously the greatest quarterback ever right now, Joe Montana. That's probably going to be eclipsed by the great Tom Brady. But Joe Montana has 4 Super Bowl rings with a 16-7 postseason record. And if you want to talk about tap dancing in the pocket, you want to talk about beautiful ballet feet, this man had them, Joe Montana, and had a whip of an arm right there with Aaron Rodgers, to me, to my eye test sight. Now, number 3 on my list is the great John Elway, who has 2 Super Bowl rings and a 14-7 postseason record. And you don't remember this because it was before your time. John Elway could flat out fly out of the pocket. He was a sensational early career athlete who learned that it's probably best to stay in the pocket, and later in his career to hand off to your guy TD, right? Terrell Davis, because that's how you win Super Bowls, and he won 2 that probably could have been 3 if he'd come back for 1 more year. But I'll take him over Aaron Rodgers. And then number 4 on my list is a guy who could run rings around Aaron Rodgers, those great feet of his. Roger Staubach. As clutch a quarterback as I've ever seen. If I have one game for my life, I want Roger Staubach to start that game. They called him Roger Dodger because he could just escape and run and take off and sprint down the field. He had RG3 in him early in his career until he learned you probably can't survive that way in the NFL. Roger Staubach has 2 rings and an 11-6 playoff record. So now that's 4. And then the 5th guy on my list is this guy that you always disparage on this show named Brett Favre. Do you remember him early in his career? What a stud athlete he was. Could he not make people miss in the pocket? Could he not run down the football field in ways that Aaron Rodgers never thought about running? Brett Favre had the strongest arm in pro football early on. Brett Favre won 3 straight MVPs. Brett Favre did win only 1 Super Bowl, but at least he's 13-11 in the playoffs, which I think is a little better than 6-5 that Aaron Rodgers has right now. Maybe someday Aaron will get to 13-11 because that's the track he's on. But I'll just throw in Brett Favre because you're talking about talent, pure talent. Nobody had a cannon like Brett Favre's for the first 6 or 8 years of his career. So I just gave you 5 off the top of my head. I didn't even throw Marino in there. But if you just want to do eye test, just pure arm talent, nobody had more arm talent than Dan Marino did, including Aaron Rodgers. So I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm embarrassed we're doing this question. Thank you very much.
Well, you should be embarrassed, but not over the question. You should be embarrassed by your ridiculous, asinine comments that you just made, so disrespectful towards the greatness of Aaron Rodgers. Let's go down the list, Skip Bayless. Let's keep in mind that coming into this season, his career stats, Skip, his career passer rating of 106 is number 1. That's number 1. You look at his completion percentage. Yes, it is. Oh, well, I do. I'm sorry, you don't get to speak for me. Zip it. You had your moment. Zip it. I'm talking. Chicka. That's right. Point number 2, completion percentage. Career, 65.8%.
Wow.
The touchdown rate is 6.5%.
Wow.
His interception rate at 1.6%, Skip Bayless. I mean, you talk yards per attempt. Number 3 all time at 8.2. Now, let's look at this. Let's go down your list. Because we ain't going to even bring up Tom Brady because we know you and I ain't going to agree there, okay? We ain't going to agree there at all.
So we're just going to throw him out.
Let's go down your list.
Okay. He doesn't count.
No, I'm saying we disagree because what I'm saying to you is this. Tom Brady's been around longer. He's been starting longer. He's been in the same system. The level of continuity that he has had with Bill Belichick, the way Bill Belichick seems to continuously get no names and make them look great on both sides of the football, I think is a testament to his greatness as a coach.
Julian Edelman, a 7th-round former quarterback?
You're kidding me. That is exactly why you and I disagree right there. That's why I say I ain't going to get it to him, because I said on both sides of the ball, Bill Belichick is the man. You can sit there and say what you want, but you're going to sit there and give Brady all the credit. That's fine. We've argued about that enough. Let's get something fresh. We got Montana here. Ooh, I got to admit, the 4 Super Bowl rings can't be denied. His greatness. Joe Cool, okay, under pressure. I get all of that. So I can sit there and debate it with you, but I can tell you, even though Joe Montana could scramble, I never saw him throw a football the way that Aaron Rodgers threw a football. But that's fair because he's Joe Montana, all right? So I'm going to concede that you might have a point there. Not Brady, but Montana. But here's where you make me laugh. Elway wasn't as great as he was, and no disrespect to Elway, as great as he was, even you were willing to admit that we didn't see the Super Bowls until Terrell Davis arrived. Not to mention the fact that whether it was because he was throwing too hard, acting like he was playing outfield for the New York Yankees instead of quarterback for the Denver Broncos, there were some times when John Elway, this completion percentage wasn't that high, where receivers may have been dropping his passes, and there were times he didn't produce. Okay? So now let's get to Starbucks. He got 2 other teams to Super Bowls, okay? Just for the record. He got 2 bad teams to Super Bowls and got blown out. Go ahead. That's fair. All right. He got annihilated. I guess he got annihilated, especially by the Redskins. But that's fine. But then I'm looking at Roger Staubach. Okay, he was a champion. Mr. Navy. Love him. Love his service to our country. Great man. Is a phenomenal businessman since he stepped away from the game. But here's the thing about Roger Staubach. 22,000 career passing yards. Okay, are you kidding me? You could talk about what he did. His numbers don't even compare. And by the way, he was buffered by the doomsday defense of your Dallas Cowboys. Let's not forget that. Plus, he had great players with him, the Drew Pearsons of the world, the Tony Dorsetts of the world. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. So he's a Hall of Famer, but let's put it in perspective. Now let me get to my last point, because this is just absolutely hysterical. Brett Favre? You mean the Brett Favre with the career 62% completion percentage? You mean the Brett Favre who's thrown you think the Brett Favre who's thrown 336 interceptions in his career in 20 years has the same amount of Super Bowl championships as Aaron Rodgers? And you're going to tell me he was better than Aaron Rodgers?
Ever. That guy. Yes, that guy. Yes.
He does. Let me just, Skip, I'm going to say something to you that you might consider very blunt. You thought I was disrespectful before. Allow me to sit here and say this to you. I'll give Brett Favre all the credit in the world for being the Iron Man that he is with those consecutive games played. He certainly had big moments. He was a gunslinger and made big plays. He made big mistakes, too. I'm telling you right now, Brett Favre doesn't even belong in this conversation with Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
Not even in this conversation.
Last question. Back to you.
Not even in this conversation. What?
As a young quarterback, which quarterback had more talent, Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre? Just on pure, raw, God-given talent, which one has the most talent?
I don't think that's a fair question. I don't think that's a fair question because Aaron Rodgers was sitting on the bench for 4 years.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Say it again.
Aaron Rodgers was sitting on the bench for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay, but
so what I'm saying to you is
his first year starting, just as a young player, who had the most talent?
No, his first year starting, there was nothing that he did was comparable to Brett Favre. Second year and on, yes, it was.
Brett Favre, more talented than Aaron Rodgers as a younger player.
Nope.
Yes.
You just said it first. If you're going to take Aaron Rodgers' first year, after that.
Yeah. At a comparable age, at whatever, 28 years of age. More talent, Brett Favre. Yes. You just don't remember. You're too young.
Brett Favre could never throw the ball like this dude.
Yes, he could.
Oh, I'm not too young. You talk about too young.
You're too young.
I was in college when Brett Favre was playing.
We have to go to break. We have to go to break. Stephen A., I appreciate you coming up with this question. This was tremendous. We could do a whole show on this. Just to recap, Skip's 5 quarterbacks better than Rodgers in history: Brady, Montana, Elway, Staubach, and Favre. We asked you guys earlier, we wanted you to weigh in, if Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL, using the hashtag best NFL passer. And here are the results. 65% say yes, agreeing with Stephen A. Skip likes his back against the wall like the Patriots anyway. 35% saying no.
And now, for Geico's edition of Stuff Found in Your Car, we go inside your side door pocket.
Hello, yes, the crumpled receipt with gum in it. From your anniversary dinner, you sprang for expensive wine, your server was Beth. That dinner was a couple $100. Money you could get back if you switched to Geico and saved hundreds of dollars on your car insurance. I bet you'd save that receipt. Frame it even. But really, where did I go wrong? Was it the corkage fee?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com today.
Now, back in May, Lakers GM Mitch Kupchak said Kobe Bryant indicated that this season, his 20th in the league, will be his last, but later clarified that the decision to retire will be his. Bryant spoke to our Shelley Smith yesterday and doesn't really know what his future holds. Take a listen.
You know your body so well. You know when enough's enough.
Yeah. You have to accept that. You can't fight it. You just have to accept it. If I knew this was going to be my last year, I'd say it. There's no. Now the question of like, how do you know? I don't know. When I talk to Jeter and Michael and all these guys, and it's different for all of them, right? So it's not a consistent thread. So I don't know what that's going to be like. Am I going to wake up one morning and be like, okay, you know what? Now I don't feel like playing anymore. I'm done. Is it a gradual thing? I don't know.
You don't want to miss it if you decide you got it.
Yeah, I'm going to miss it.
Yeah, no matter what.
Oh, no matter what. It's just like, is it time to move on or not? Do you want to play some more or not? And I don't know how that process is going to happen.
Stephen A., what do you make of Kobe's comments there?
Well, I'm not surprised by them because he's only played 41 games over the last 2 years. And obviously, I think that had he been able to play, most of the last 2 seasons, I definitely believe this would be his last year. Because as recently as a couple of years ago, you heard him allude to the fatigue. You heard him allude to how the end is drawing near. And so you just got the impression that he wanted to reach his 20th year, playing as effectively as he's capable of playing, and then call it a day. But in light of the fact that he's missed, most of the last 2 seasons, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he decided to come back, assuming that the Los Angeles Lakers have a relatively productive season because there's a lot of youth on this squad. Now, let's be clear. Neither of us expect that to happen. They won 21 games last year. And to be fair and to be completely concise, no matter what my criticism is about the Lakers, it's about the Lakers as an organization, primarily with Jeannie Buss not dealing with her brother Jim Buss. I'm not excoriating the players in any way. They're young, and they're going to have to go through a learning curve, and sometimes that's a bit rougher than it should be, particularly within the Western Conference. It's really a byproduct of the Western Conference being as lethal as it is as to why the Lakers are going to have some trouble. But if a Julius Randle, who got hurt the very first game of the regular season last year, shows up and shows out, if D'Angelo Russell, the number 2 overall pick out of Ohio State, plays better than he did in the Summer League and really showcases his skill set, if a Jordan Clarkson, who everybody seems to be raving about, he's only 23 years of age, he's entering his 2nd year, he has shown a lot of promise, people are raving about him. You got guys like that added to a Louis Williams acquired in the offseason coming off the bench, a Roy Hibbert, who obviously is still a big body at 7'2", is capable of defending. You just never know. Even in the Wild Wild West, there are contributions that he can make. And then you add to that a guy like Brandon Bass, who I like. There's nothing great about him, but there's nothing poor about him per se. He comes out there, he plays hard, he can rebound, he can score a little bit. He's no scrub, he's got a lot of heart, he ain't scared of anybody. If all of those things somehow manage to come together while Kobe can still do what Kobe is capable of doing, particularly when he's resigned to the fact that he's got to play a lesser role, potentially minutes-wise. And he's also got to play the role of a mentor, and he's willing to do that. If he gravitates to them, which I think he deserves more credit for because he's willing to teach a hell of a lot more than he's given credit for. If he's willing to do that and he gravitates towards those guys and they gravitate towards him and he shows promise, who knows? Things could work out for the better for the Los Angeles Lakers. So I don't blame him for taking the position that he's not ruling anything out. But although, Skip, I doubt it's going to happen, I will remind you, the Lakers don't seem that high on bringing him forward from what you hear from them. But I'm telling you, regardless of how senseless it may make, in one breath I'm hearing that if Kevin Durant doesn't play in Oklahoma, if doesn't stay in Oklahoma City, L.A. is his primary objective and landing spot as opposed to South Beach or even his home of Washington, D.C., I heard Melo, Kevin Durant, Kobe. And when you take into account that Phil Jackson is on the record saying it might be Kobe's last year in L.A., opening the door that there are possibilities for him to go elsewhere, all I'm saying is you just never know. Usually I've heard things in the past that sounded utterly ridiculous, and they could end up, and they've ended up happening. This is one of the things that I'm hearing as a possibility, even though I sincerely doubt it.
Okay, to what you're hearing, to your maybe long shot but possible theory that you are projecting here, I believe, this is my 2 cents from a distance, if Kobe can remain healthy this whole basketball season, and if he doesn't just flat out embarrass himself on the basketball court, which he will not, then I believe he will want to play another year. That's just what I believe, because I don't see a Kobe who has positioned himself to go into broadcasting or just to retire and play golf. He doesn't play golf that I know of. You know, he doesn't have those kinds of hobbies. I know he's interested in filmmaking, but not that interested above basketball. So if he thinks he could play another year, I think he will. And now to your theory, maybe the Lakers have just flat out decided, no, we need to go forward into a new post-Kobe era. And if that's what the Buss family wants to do, then you could be right on target. It could be Kobe, Melo, Durant, maybe with the Knicks. You never know.
Listen, I like.
Well, I don't think you can't rule out anything. You can't rule out anything because you just never know. And plus, that Phil LA dynamic outside of Jeannie, there's still the issue of Jim Buss, and we know what their relationship is like in terms of Phil Jackson and Jim Buss. And I know for a fact that Carmelo Anthony is going to do everything in his power to try to get Kevin Durant to come to New York.
Sure.
But I have heard if he's not willing to go back to Oklahoma City, that L.A. will be his primary target. But Miami and Washington obviously both believe they have a chance. So Kevin Durant is going to be the marquee free agent next summer, even more so than LeBron to me, because the suspense is going to diminish with LeBron because everybody's going to assume he's going back to Cleveland unless he and the Cavs organization find themselves on opposite ends of the page and they win a championship. Then he would have fulfilled his promise to Cleveland in delivering them a championship, and then he could potentially move on. But he's not thinking like that right now.
Andrew Luck completed his 12th career fourth-quarter overtime comeback Sunday, mostly due to the fact that he had time to throw. Now, stay with me here. Luck was pressured on 13 of his 22 dropbacks in the first three quarters, including his second interception, but was pressured on just 2 of his 14 fourth-quarter dropbacks. So Luck now has 30 turnovers since the start of the 2014 season, the most in the NFL during that span. Stephen A., are you still as high on Luck?
In all fairness and in all honesty, Skip, no, I am not. I still believe that he's a fantastic young quarterback who's got a tremendous amount of promise, and I love his guts. In the fourth quarter alone, what are the numbers here? 11 for 13, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns inside of 59 seconds, thanks to Dwight Lowry's second interception of the game. He showed up when it counted most, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. But these turnovers that he continues to make put Indianapolis in a hole. Now, I've been on the record saying on many, many occasions, they need to help him out. They need to protect him better. They need to get guys out of his face. They need to put him in a position where he can stand back there and throw the football like other quarterbacks have the luxury of doing. And by and large, a lot of the mistakes that he's made, being sacked 100 times in his first 3 years in the NFL, although it dissipated over the last 2 years, is still entirely too many. The amount of hits, he's gotten hit more than any quarterback in the NFL. We get all of that. But knowing this, he still runs out of the pocket, and it ain't just interceptions. He's fumbling the ball when he gets hit. He's scrambling, and he's not protecting the ball the way that he should. And it seemed over the course of a couple of games this season to have become more of a mental issue as anything else. Sort of praying, Skip, that you don't make those mistakes rather than just playing. The first 3 years that he played in the NFL, I just saw a guy trying to overcompensate and make things happen, leading his team to 3 consecutive 11-5 seasons and advancements in the postseason each year. What I've seen this year thus far, with the exception of that fourth quarter on Sunday against Tennessee, I saw a guy that seems mentally warped, literally afraid of the next mistake he's going to make.
Wow.
I don't see the same Andrew Luck mentally, and he's going to have to overcome that. He's young. It's no reason to panic or anything like that. I'm just acknowledging that for the first time, I'm seeing things that I did not see before, and that has to change if he's going to be the quarterback I and many others profess to you that he is going to be.
So you're conceding a little bit that I wasn't just being a hater when I called it a premature coronation of Andrew Luck, the turnover machine that he has been for the past really 4 years.
Well, I wouldn't go that far because I just said to you that the things that I'm seeing now I didn't see before. I thought when you were saying that before, you were seeing things you wanted to see. I think right now Andrew Luck has made you a prophet because now the things that you were swearing about, which to me did not exist before, suddenly have come into existence, and I think they're relevant now.
Okay, but he did have the second most turnovers in all of pro football to Mark Sanchez when Luck was a rookie. And then that continued into last year when he had the second most turnovers to Jay Cutler, your favorite quarterback. So I'm just reacting to what I see.
I still didn't care about any of that.
Okay.
I didn't care about that. I care about it now because he's got Moncrief with T.Y. Hilton, with Fleener and those boys, and he's got Frank Gore. He didn't have that before. There's no excuse for him doing it now. He was overcompensating in the past. Now he's just messing up.
Okay, but he has been held upright a little bit by the fact that he's played in the AFC South, and he's 17-2 against the AFC South. So that's been his buoy so far in pro football, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Buoy, I like that name.
Yeah.
That was pretty smooth. Steve Smith Sr. had 13 receptions for 186 yards and 2 TDs versus the Bengals, but it wasn't enough, something he made light of in his postgame interview with the Ravens website. Offensively, we played our butt off. You know, we got to have both sides of the ball playing hard, wanting to finish the game, and we just didn't have that bottom line. Stephen A., how are Smith's teammates going to react to those comments?
Well, I don't think they're going to take it lightly. They've got a lot of pride. They're going to have an attitude with him, but at the same time, they're going to have to step up because he's going to call them out. He ain't going to change his stripes. They gave up 111 yards to Crabtree, 109 to Amari Cooper 2 weeks ago. They gave up 227 yards to A.J. Green last week. That defense, that back seven, the Will Hill, C.J. Mosley, Terrence Brooks, they got some hits on Dalton last week, but needing pressure from them opens up your secondary to be exposed. They got to fix their defense, and I don't know if they can because Suggs is out.
I'm with you. I don't think these comments were calculated. I don't think he said this just to inspire his defense. I think Steve Smith just thought his defense didn't play very hard against the Bengals. So I think it will have unintentional impact on the defense because they're going to be angry. I think they'll play angry to spite Steve Smith at Pittsburgh. So I think this is slight advantage Baltimore Ravens.
They'll do it, but Suggs and McPhee being in Chicago now is a huge loss for their pass rush. They're lucky they're not playing Big Ben this Thursday.
Yep.
Yeah. Flacco versus Vic, that'll be good. They're scheduled pretty favorable the rest of the way. Browns, Niners, Cards is tough. Chargers, then Jags, maybe okay. See you guys tomorrow, same time, same place. We appreciate you listening to the First Take podcast. You can catch us on ESPN2 Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Last week, Julie Carroll posted a status that read, "Just had the most delicious banana ever." It got 2 likes and 4 comments. Well, Julie, Geico also wants to make a comment. What if we told you in as little as 15 minutes you could save hundreds of dollars on your car insurance by switching to Geico? With those hundreds of dollars, we bet you can find another banana equally, if not more delicious than the one you had last week. Hashtag go bananas, hashtag savings.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The Pirates and Cardinals have the best 2 records in baseball, and they go head-to-head one final time this regular season. Could this be a preview of next week's division series? Coverage begins Wednesday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio.